All right, so it's about 11 o'clock Pacific, so I think we should just go ahead and get started. People will trickle in as in these next few minutes. But hello, everyone. It's great to have you all here. For those of you who do not know me yet, my name is Mike Gilson. I'm the CEO of Conversica. I'm very excited to bring this group together today to talk about a challenge that is on a lot of our minds today. So really what we're going to be speaking about today are the challenges associated with running event marketing campaigns and strategies. And we're going to have a great viewpoint on this from one of the early movers in AI, John Hanson from Iron Mountain, who really is the Senior Director of Field Marketing for North America and Latin America, John, I believe, for Iron Mountain. And he's going to walk us through just how events are playing into his global go-to-market strategy, as well as some of the challenges that he's facing from that lens. And then we'll talk about how we've been helping him and the team leverage AI as part of their event marketing strategy, as well as talk more about what they want to be focusing more on in the year ahead. There's a lot going on from his side, and I look forward to hearing more from him on that and Scott, who he'll introduce in a minute. On the call, we also have Claire McMillan from Conversica, who's an all-star in our team. She helps keep our customers happy, and she's a wealth of knowledge on how to leverage AI with event marketing and the best practices associated with that. So looking forward to hearing from Claire today. And just for everyone's context, we've been in business for several years, and event marketing is a consistent challenge that comes up again and again from our interactions with customers really across the world. And I think events are becoming more and more mainstream. More and more companies are choosing to invest their precious marketing dollars on campaigns because of how effective they can be with really fostering trust and developing trust with your customer base and educating prospects on everything that your company has to offer. And so between webinars and in-person events, these typically represent very large line items in terms of budget. We're finding that events are becoming more expensive to host and manage, and the logistics associated with that is very challenging. I think a very challenging use case and workflow that we are very in tune with, working in tandem with our customers, is really the follow-up challenge associated with hosting events. So being able to engage with attendees, being able to follow up with every attendee in a personalized way at scale, oftentimes in global environments, is not an easy thing to deal with. And it creates a lot of challenges for sales and marketing teams. And as we've learned more about this space, as we've worked with many companies around the world, this is a perfect use case for AI to augment an event marketing strategy. So that is the context for today's discussion. I'm really looking forward to hearing more from John and team here on some best practices and some of their experiences trying to leverage this type of technology with an event marketing strategy. So I think with that, what I'm going to do, I'm going to kick it over to John and Claire to do a quick intro here, and then we'll get into the discussion and we'll close it out with Claire presenting some best practices around how to do this effectively. So with that, John, I'm going to pass it over to you if you want to just do a quick intro for the group, and then we'll go from there.
Hey, thanks, Mike. Appreciate that for the introduction. I'm John Hanson. I work for Iron Mountain and in field marketing. I oversee the team that leads our North America and LATAM regions. And we use webinars and events, in-person events and online events extensively throughout our go-to-market plans and our demand generation activities. So to do that kind of volume and scale that we're doing with over 100 events a year, I had to bring along a sidekick, Scott Stano on my team, help really keeps things in line and probably will keep me straight on this call. So Scott, thanks for joining the call and correct me if I go astray.
Definitely.
Otherwise,
Pleasure to be with you all today. Thank you.
Yeah. So Claire, I guess I'll turn it to you.
Awesome. Thank you. And for anyone who doesn't know me, and thank you, Mike, for the introduction, but my name is Claire McMillan. So Customer Success Manager at Conversica for about 4.5 years now. I've been working with the Iron Mountain team for a couple of years and have learned a lot about their strategy. So thank you guys for jumping on today. I want to just dive right into a conversation and ask you, John and Scott, and I know we have Matthew on here as well, who really is the one building and creating these campaigns for you guys in Conversica, but just some of the initial challenges that you faced with events, and whether that be with the post-event outreach or the pre-event invites, and kind of what that looked like for your team, given the number of events you have each year. And yeah, just kind of starting there, I think is a good.
Yeah, and like I said, events are a big part of our strategy. In North America, we do about 100 events a year. So with that kind of scale and volume, and some of our events can be pretty large. Our largest events might have 400 attendees and 900 register, down to very small bespoke events that might be around 25 or 30. So when we do those types of events and the number of events, we really needed a process that was repeatable and scalable, because what we found is that, one, sales doesn't necessarily like to follow up with a lot of leads, and they find it mundane and slow to follow up on. But an event is an event that suddenly dumps a lot of potential leads in their lap. So it's not just the following up of leads, but it might be a large volume of leads. And so we found that traditionally we've gotten a lot of our leads are not worked or minimally worked. And we think that there are some real opportunities. So we really started shifting our strategy about a year and a half ago, to thinking about different ways that not only we manage the types of events and how we communicated pre and post with customers on those event types, but we also have been changing the way in which we go about managing those leads pre, and how we're selecting the targets to invite, but also post event, how we're responding to them. So a lot of work. We're certainly not done, but we feel like we're in a pretty good spot. We've seen great performance improvement of our activity so far this year.
Awesome. And can you share just a little bit about, I guess, the impact that bringing in these AI agents has had on the team? And if you guys have received good feedback from sales since implementing Conversica in some of these areas?
Yeah, it's funny. I think some of the best feedback that we get is actually from customers that don't realize they're even speaking to a digital assistant. And we are purposeful in trying to make it sound conversational and sound human-like. We're not trying to deceive them by any means, but we feel like the conversational way in which the correspondence goes back and forth is far more engaging than what we've seen. So when we would send traditional emails through our CRM, our open rates that we started tracking and doing compare and contrast with Conversica, we're seeing 3x the open rate. So by far, our Conversica engaged emails we're getting more penetration into the accounts, but also more engagement when we are talking with them.
Awesome.
I would add to that as well. Our click-through rates and engagement with that metric through Conversica is 3 times higher than just marketing automation as well. So you see those opens really translating into deeper engagement in content.
Awesome. And being
just a quick add here for the group. Please, if there's any questions, please either type them into the chat or raise your hand. We'll be happy to get to them. Again, this is an open collaborative discussion, so please feel free to ask questions of Claire, myself, or John and Scott here. We're happy to answer any and all questions. So just want to put that out there.
Yeah, I'll leave the Q&A actually up so that I can see different questions that come in. And I do see one, so I can just kind of answer that as we're going through this, and will help lead me to my next question actually. But just using the out-of-box templates or custom messaging to make the agent more conversational. Great question. The Iron Mountain team has been with Conversica for, I believe, over 5 years now. So all of the communication that they used Conversica for at the beginning was all with our standard messaging, using those templates with the dynamic variables that we all are familiar with in the conversation editor. However, I know since I've been working with Matthew and some of the other groups at Iron Mountain that we have started to evolve the messaging and include a lot of the personal elements, and so opened it up to custom messaging depending on the use case.
Yeah, and just to add to that, custom messaging doesn't just have to be the message itself. It could be being thoughtful on the event type and format. If it's a lunch and learn where you're going to do a product demo, is a very different conversation than thought leadership. So targeting the right audience. And I know we're going to talk about segmentation here probably in a minute. But that was one of the big shifts for us, was to think about how do we do a better job on the front end of segmenting our audience, and then based on their engagement, how we respond to them. So instead of the traditional, hey, thanks for attending, or sorry, we missed you, we're noting, hey, did they ask a question? So our emails back would be more about, we noticed that she asked a question during the call, during the webinar. Did you get your answer to your question? Do you have more questions? More that type. If they downloaded content, it might be, hey, people that downloaded this content also downloaded these other items, as just as two examples, where we're really tailoring it to the experience the individual had, not just the blanket experience of the webinar.
Awesome. Well, because you brought it up, we can kind of pivot into the segmentation piece of things and how you guys segment the leads for those leads that registered, maybe there was those that didn't, and if that's something that you guys focus on in your event outreach.
Yeah, well, so even beyond events, we've been doing this wholeheartedly all year long when it comes to all of our campaigns. So we're paying far more interest into intent and signals, as well as using propensity models to do a better job of targeting. Some of the events that we do are either industry, vertical, or maybe even trade association oriented. So we use some of that and building in. And then if it's a customer versus a prospect, we're looking at those. If it's a new persona that we might not, we know the customer, but we might not know the IT director, for example. Some of our approach factors in all of those variables, and then their engagement also would be considered there. Scott or Matthew, I don't know if you have anything to add.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of thoughts there. And what it's really enabled us to do is be, as John was talking about, much more specific in our follow-up. So if you have an in-person event, you have folks that really need to go right to sales, and we have to have that motion. But we also have, swag hunters where we maybe didn't have a chance to engage with them deeply at the booth. And then folks in between. So using different conversational elements with Conversica, we can engage these audiences in different ways over time, instead of sometimes in the market you see a one post event email, thank you for visiting or not, and then you kind of move on to the next event. This is a mechanism to help our events live on longer and drive more value, both for in-person as well as online. Same opportunity, registrants, attendees, who's the most engaged, and further, who might we want to cold outreach with some of this content and the personas we have as part of leads generated in the past, to really drive more value from that online event as well. So there's really a lot of opportunity using Conversica.
Yeah, we definitely see a lot of value too, and building that messaging that's crafted around the persona, but then also the behavior. So whether or not, again, they registered but didn't attend, or they visited you at your booth, or they spoke to a specific sales rep at the event, we see a lot of value with that, and I think that can inherently help the engagement and overall performance of the campaigns as well. So glad to hear that that's something you guys focus on.
Yeah, and I'll add one other to that is we used to, with some of our post-event emails, we used to talk about the event and what was, and it kind of stops there. But where we really want to evolve to, and we're getting there, is to build more of a continuing sequence or a daisy chain, depending on how you describe it. So it could be, if you want to learn more, or if there's a direct CTA to say, hey, do you want to speak to sales? That jumps to the front of the line. But we really like the idea of providing them with more information or a landing page or a next step that's a soft next step, so that we're continuing the engagement, not just ending it after a few emails and thank yous.
Yeah, and John and Claire, we just got a question from Irene here. Since they are event leads, what type of subject lines do you see doing better than others? Is it more casual, et cetera? What's been your approach with that?
It's a good question. I may defer to Scott on that. I do know that we like the dynamic elements of the Conversica chat or email, where it will pick different headlines and subjects. And so we typically will go with when we'll run some of the initial, we'll go with what is the strongest in terms of response rate. And that can vary. But a lot of those subject lines, we do want to tailor to the different engagement type. So if it's a question asked, it could be a follow-up to that. If it's a content download, or they specifically said they want to see a demo or talk to sales, we'll put that into the subject lines and be based on their experience, I guess is the way to say it.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And just, Irene, to kind of provide a little bit more there, and something that I know about Iron Mountain too, is a lot of the times you guys are using actually our default subject line. So what you were saying, John, and something that kind of comes with the templates that we have, or the conversation templates, is that they are built and they're relevant to the objective of the conversation, obviously. And it does allow you guys to kind of differentiate. So if you're reaching out to many people, at one organization, it will be, we're sending that they're each receiving different variations of that first email and different subject lines. So that helps with deliverability and other things along those lines. But we do see that subject lines for events, we can get a little bit creative with them depending on, how quickly we're following up after the event. If I'm reaching out to people that attended an event yesterday, just a webinar or something online, I might want to include their name and just get very personal, and also the event title or something that was like a little nugget from the event, just something to kind of pique their interest while the event is still fresh on their mind. So it's typically what I recommend my customers to do. But again, there are different things that we want to consider as far as timing and, again, like their behavior in a sense of whether or not they engaged with us, what the event was about, and anything along those lines. But yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't mean to step on
You're
there.
good. You're good.
So just as an example of that is let's say someone registered for an event and they didn't end up attending it. That happens a lot. But we really want to encourage them to engage with us, not just say, hey, here's the on-demand recording, have at it. We might change our approach, and we've tried this with some of our thought leadership events earlier in the year, is doing a tip sheet or here's what you missed type of summary. So it gives them the highlights of the webinar or of the event that they might have missed. And if that is truly something that they want to engage with, we find that helps spur them on into to being more active with the follow-up and the on-demand.
Yeah. Subject lines are a tricky thing. They're ever changing. I feel like from the days when I was sending or making cold calls and sending cold emails, they've changed immensely. I just saw something now that was like, don't ever include a capital letter in your subject line. So it's something that we can always test and run a response by attempt report to see, at what point leads are falling off, what's performing best, and so on. So great question. And I think that, yeah, it's something worth exploring. Subject lines are for sure.
The one thing that I would say is, and this is partly why we like the Conversica tool so much, is that we want in general to do more and more test and learn, not just set and forget. And so the dynamic elements of Conversica allows you to do test and learn on the messaging and the subjects, et cetera, the different times of day, and so on, without having to manually do it. So it's built into the automation of it. But we're big advocates of test and learn, and we do that across all different types of programming that we do. But Conversica makes it easy because it's built into just a normal delivery system.
Yeah, there's always information uncovered. That's for sure. Well, that kind of brings me to my next question, which is just, throughout the time that you guys have been doing this, what are some of your learnings? I know that you shared a lot of them, but I guess what are the ones that really stand out to you? And that could be, learnings where you're maybe something didn't work or something stuck and you guys have continued to move forward with that. But just kind of curious to know what, I guess, your takeaways are on those.
Well, I'll start with why we got involved with Conversica in the first place, and that is going back 4 or 5 years ago. Whenever we first engaged, we were we had a real problem with sales not following up on leads, and about 1 in 3 leads was not being acted upon. They just ignored them. So we really needed to solve that because we couldn't afford to spend more money to acquire leads. What we really needed to do was get the leads that we had already acquired acted upon. So that's why we initially started with Conversica in the first place. When it comes to events specifically, I think we've talked about a lot of the things that we've done and changed already, but we have noticed, and I think we'll talk about metrics at some point, but we've noticed a real return on investment. We look at return on investment in terms of pipeline created. And by far, online events or webinars are our best performing activation. So, and we measure that, and we have for several years now, and that has grown. Currently, year to date, we're very proud to say that for every dollar that we spend on a webinar or online event, we're earning $640 of pipeline, which is 6x our full program average. So it's definitely pulling up the curve on everything else that we do. So I think that's a key part of it. I don't know, Scott, or if you've got any thoughts that I might not have touched on.
Yeah, I think one of the big findings for me, and thinking both through an event demand generation lens as well as just general campaigns, really the level to which Conversica can scale to support our strategy as we shift and change it throughout the year. We're creeping up and perhaps just into the six figure of leads being managed as part of our Conversica processes. And as we look at expanding our footprints for invite invitations, or event invitations, as we look at expanding our footprint of follow-up, trying to include new and more personas, the scalability is there and the configurability is there. So that's been something that I've gotten really excited about is the adaptiveness and how nimble we can be. Even midstream, like John was talking about, let's course correct this because we're not seeing the trend in the right direction. So for me is kind of an operator, if you will, it provides a lot of tools to us to engage these folks the way we want to.
Yeah, so we kind of talked about why we started. We kind of talked about what we've done and evolved over time. And then, so let's finish with where we're pointed in the future. And that is, I think, globalization of the way the North America team is doing webinars and online events today is something that the rest of our global regions, we're in 5 globally, they want to adopt. So Matthew already is managing 100 events a year. We don't want him to have to manage 500 events a year. So the ability to use an always on a digital assistant that never takes a day off or gets sick is really of value because that scale that Scott's talking about is there. But I would also add that it's not uncommon for us to have international or global attendees to some of our events. And so when you do lead follow-up and you're handing that off to a rep or assigning that lead to a rep, a US rep is not going to necessarily follow up on a lead for France or as an example. And a Canadian customer may want a Canadian rep to respond to them versus a US rep. So we try and think about it in that way. And, I think globalization of our events is further aided by having this automation and AI back end to really service it 24/7.
Yeah, that's
You
huge.
guys
the globalization aspect, John, obviously that's a real challenge for a lot of our customers that operate, across the world. So thank you for sharing that input. I think the question, obviously, that the ROI on your events, that you're really making it work. And so I think the group, myself included, would really love to understand. Obviously, AI plays a part in that type of return, but why
Yeah.
do you think your returns have been so strong? Have there been specific decisions you've made over the past few years that you think have positioned you well for that type of return? And would just love to hear more about that perspective.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that we, in the past, have thought about events as single fence posts and or mushrooms in a field. They're not necessarily connected to anything else around them. So we really wanted to make online events in particular a part of the buyer journey. So, for example, we do some thought leadership. We call them our anchor events. We do about a half a dozen a year. And we really promote them strongly into as big and wide an audience as possible. It's very high level content. We usually have either customers or subject matter experts as speakers, and we really try and cast a wide net and do that. And that's very upper funnel, Mike. We then think about the buyer journey, and as they progress down the funnel, we're doing different types of events to engage them at that level. So if we're talking about at thought leadership emerging trends at that consideration stage, we're really talking about what are the challenges or obstacles to overcome, and then what are potential solutions that are out there. And then as the buyer starts to drop into the lower funnel, that's when we really start to tailor in those lunch and learns that are smaller and more like this forum where people can ask questions and be interactive rather than just listen. So I think putting events at the right stage of the funnel and then making it part, not just a start and a stop, but making it part of an overall buyer journey has helped increase the engagement. And we're seeing that leads from our online events in particular, of all of the campaigns and programs that we run for Conversica, which is over a dozen different campaign types. That by far has the hottest or fastest to hot lead conversion rate. So, and that's something that you guys measure for us, which is great. And we think it's because we're not just treating it as an isolated, but part of a continuing conversation. And that conversation feels like just natural, if you will, because it follows their journey.
Yeah, I love that, John. I think that's what I'm advocating here internally for our company, and I know many companies that we deal with are really want to replicate that as well. So we love seeing just what happens or what's possible in some ways if you really lean into that type of strategy. So thank you for sharing that viewpoint.
Yeah.
Now, we also got a question from Jason here. Are you able to provide a quick overview of how Iron Mountain integrates Zoom or any of the other webinar platforms, both pre and post event? How does that work? How do you basically infuse that tool into your workflow?
Yeah, we use several different platforms depending on the type of engagement. We've used different platforms over the years. We prefer for pre-event to use from our own CRM and send the invitations out from that. But it's pretty integrated with Zoom and with some of the other ones that we use, where it's pretty seamless in the connectivity of that. Post-event, one of the things that we really want to do a better job of is the automation straight through, and I think you guys are going to cover that in the latter half of the call. But it's still a little bit of a manual process to ingest the leads and the information from the events. That's really what we want to do to have it more seamless and flowing and constantly on. But for the most part, you can find the integrations out there. So we haven't run into too many issues. Scott, I don't know if you have any perspective on that.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to add is we are using Calendly as part of pre-event promotion for in-person events, whether they're Iron Mountain owned or sometimes third party, to give people an opportunity to schedule on the spot time at the booth, time at a breakout session, wherever it might be. So as part of the offer mix, we do have a calendaring system per event to say, hey, let's sign up right now. And then that empowers us to do further follow-up pre-show with that person, confirming some of their interest, confirming the time, all of that to really get that relationship ignited. So that's one other mechanism we use as part of our flow.
Yeah, and with Calendly, we like also because I mentioned our six thought leadership. We treat that as a series. And so we have people that will sign up for the series. They don't just have to sign up for the individual events. And that's a really nice feature of Calendly as well, is they can just opt into all of them. So we don't have to add them to the emails and respond and register each time, which is nice.
Awesome. And I know that many other customers too will just include the registration link in their email. So they'll use a link variable or just the hyperlink feature in custom messaging to include that link so that we can drive leads toward just engaging with that and registering. But we will talk about that a little bit as we move along as well.
We have another
Yeah.
one from, oh, sorry, John, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Just got another question from Amanda. Is there an automated follow-up for those who click on the link or use it to book something like Calendly, or is that a manual process?
That is automated because we'll build that into those types of CTAs or contact forms. We'll build into our process and in through our system. So those happen pretty fast. We may have to do some back end lead routing and assignment if it's an account that's assigned to a rep versus a new prospect in our queue. But that is automated, so that's good. The other thing I was going to add is what our sales reps really like as a feature is the integration with Salesforce. So when there is a Conversica conversation in their lead record, they can click on it and see the entire transcript back and forth of the outbound touches that come from Conversica, the responses, specific responses of how the person responded and what they did. So they really like that because it gives them the context on knowing how to pick up the lead as a human and run with it where the digital assistant was doing it before. So posting that in the sales record in Salesforce is a big factor.
And just in addition to that, just looking at the most recent question from Amanda, the agent is also able to identify when a lead is clicked on a link that we provide in the email. So by default, the agent will go dormant for 2 days and then follow back up just to ensure that that lead has been taken care of. So that is just another way that we're making sure that this lead has scheduled a meeting and is ultimately moved on to the next step.
Yeah.
Well, we've talked about a lot of different areas, and I am curious to know about what you guys are hoping to do future state. So I know just from like some of the work that I've done with your group, we are talking about doing more, especially with events in different regions. But we've brought Matthew in again, and I know Matthew working on many different campaigns in Conversica and doing so often. But yeah, kind of curious to know what you guys are thinking about 2026 and if there are changes that you're going to be implementing.
So a brief intro of Matthew. Matthew is really the man behind the man. He's the person that really does the orchestration. So when I said we have one person doing 100 events, the one person is Matthew. So he knows this inside and out. Matthew, you want to weigh in here?
Yeah, so great to meet everybody and thanks for the opportunity to speak on this panel. When it comes to moving into 2026 and looking forward on how to evolve our Conversica events further, as we've kind of outlined a bit, a lot of our messaging when it comes to events, it revolves around the post-event follow-up and as John said, we bucket into what action they took based on registrant or ask a question or whatnot. What we're looking to do in the future is looking more and exploring the abilities of Conversica for pre-event engagement. So whether that's engaging with an attendee who has For example, these thought leadership webinars, they've attended a couple in the past, and we can now pull them in and say, hey, we noticed that you've engaged in a couple of these webinars. Would you be interested in this one? Currently, with our pre-event registration, we don't use Conversica to invite folks typically. I think we've maybe done it once or twice, but that's something that we're looking to get more engagement on. And then post-event, it's further refining our messaging, whether it's seeing if we can drill down and get more specific messaging on the attendees. So whether that's in identifying folks from a certain sector and creating a specific message around that, or further drilling down on maybe the resource type, whether for these webinars, we typically provide some blogs or white papers. Maybe that's differentiating the specific resource that they downloaded and tailoring a message around that.
Yeah, and I'll give Matthew some credit or some props here. About a year and a half, 2 years ago, he brought a tool forward. It's an AI aided tool called Parmonic, and we really like this tool because it allows us to very quickly on the fly edit our long form events and campaigns and really put them into snippets or bite sized pieces, so we can use and send out very quickly subsets or different chapters or parts of the webinars, and so that has really helped our engagement. And some people, I know Matthew's been exploring on sending that out to people that didn't attend, like a 1 minute summary type of approach that then might induce them to go ahead and click in and watch the whole thing. So we really like that tool, and it also translates to different languages, so it's nice.
That's very nice. We'll have to look at that one. We also had a question from Asia related to that. Matthew and John, are your Conversica campaigns using any intent data to segment any of those audiences for those event campaigns? I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, so across all of our campaigns and activations, we use a combination of intent and signals. But we start with audience, so we like to work with our product teams and our messaging teams and think about the ideal customer profile. So is it an industry? Is it a certain job level? Is it a persona? And so we do that identification early, and we do it by product specific. And I think we offer 26 different products or solutions. So refining that is important. We then layer in propensity, and we work with the sales and the commercial teams to say, what are the addressable accounts in that universe of audience? So with those two, we then use intent signals to say, of that entire audience and account propensity model, who are the ones that are active and engaged now? And we can look at them at different levels. Depending on the event, we might look at the awareness level or consideration or even lower funnel. So we use intent all throughout. What we really try and do is think about the audience list and that total list of accounts, and we measure by the penetration level of that, and then we measure by the engagement and using the intent score to respond at the right level.
Awesome.
Amazing. Thanks for that, John. Claire, should we segue into some of your best practices here? I know we can piggyback off of what we described here. I want to make sure we have enough time for you to walk through some of your learnings as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I will go ahead and share my screen. If questions come in, stop me just in case I don't see them while I'm sharing. But want to be sure to, let's see, open this up for everybody. So as I'm going through, please interrupt with questions. If something feels like something you want me to explore a little bit further, I'm happy to do just that. So can you all see just this blue screen here?
We can.
Okay, cool. All right, so ultimately the goal, as we all know, as we've been going through this, but is really just to maximize your current efforts with event today, whether that's event outreach, inviting both customers, prospects to events, and or following up. So we're going to jump right into this screen and really just the importance here is just to highlight really how events are one of the only go-to-market motions that serve the entire customer life cycle. So they help attract new prospects, re-engage active opportunities, and engage with existing customers. So in this slide, you can see that marketing can invite and qualify at full scale, sales can convert and event engagement directly into pipeline, and customer success can drive stronger adoption and expansion. So with all three of these teams aligned around this one motion, we're going to see more pipeline, stronger customer relationships, and really just an impact across the board. Starting with pre-event outreach, I will say that this one, and kind of what we were hearing from Iron Mountain as well, is a use case that's, I don't want to say overlooked, but definitely not used as much as our post-event outreach. And so I think one thing that I've started to see over the last year, though, is that more and more clients are starting to use this. And I think the real reason for that is just because it's removing that manual lift from your team. So the AI agent is sending these persistent follow-up emails to drive attendance, and we're ensuring that full coverage. So inviting prospects, customers, rather than just a specified list. There are a couple of recommendations that I have here just to scale event invites. And the very first one is just to create standard messaging. So maybe create one type of message that works and that you can use across all of your events or upcoming events, and leverage pool fields to insert relevant information. So again, you can theoretically include or add all of your leads that you want to invite into an upcoming event to one list, and then we can pull in, the name of that event, the registration link where they can then sign up, and drive toward that registration, ultimately removing that human interaction. If we do see, or your agent's able to tell that somebody has clicked on this link, again, by default, the agent will wait 2 days and then follow up to make sure that the lead has been taken care of. And that is another effort here just in helping us get some of these chairs filled at an upcoming event. And then another thing just to kind of call out here is that you can, add automation to this. But then there's just another piece where we can just simply clone the messaging. So if you have an event coming up, one message worked at your prior one, clone it, let's use it again, and just try to scale things a lot quicker. But diving right into post-event, so this is a use case that's very popular. It's actually something that we consider one of our high value use cases. And the value really is just promptly following up with leads after events. So ensuring those leads that attended, but maybe also those that registered and didn't attend, receive messaging that's driving toward your desired outcome. So the suggested conversation templates that I have here, the webinar follow-up and did not attend event. These are two very common conversation templates that we'll see across all of our customer base. You will notice that the benchmarks for the did not attend event are quite lower than the webinar follow-up. And that's primarily because, again, these leads registered, however, they did not attend. So if we're sending them an email, the day after an event, and, it's definitely not going to be as fresh on their mind as those who attended an event yesterday. And then diving into some best practices. So there are 4 items here. I know there's a lot on the screen, but I'm going to walk through it as best as I can. But the very first one is segment your audience. So we can leverage conversation rules for this. And really the goal is kind of what's illustrated here in this workflow on the top right half of the screen. So you have these leads generated and they're added to a list in Conversica. That's the standard process, regardless of if we have automation backing that or it is a manual upload to a list in your CRM. But then we can really leverage Conversica's conversation rules to segment that list. So we can say the leads that attended are going to go here, and those that registered but did not attend are going to receive messaging relevant to that behavior. We're obviously going to be pushing towards that interest and trying to get those hot leads. And once we do, and we have verified that, we're going to then pass it off to sales. So this is when your sales team gets involved, and ultimately the sales team is going to continue communication on their end. If we do not have leads that have converted, maybe leads are just not engaging with your agent, then the recommendation is to wait 60 or 90 days and re-engage those leads. So maybe send them, an invite to another event that you have upcoming, and, mention the fact that they had registered for a previous one, pique their interest with something new, try to meet them at a better time. And then the next one is just personalizing the messaging. So you can see in this example that I have at the bottom, we're using these pull fields to insert specific information. So that could be the webinar title, event title. It could be the date, anything that is really specific to the event that we have coming up. And then another item here is just to include relevant links. So while we are driving toward a conversation with a conversation with a rep, including these additional links will also help increase engagement. It just gives us another way to ultimately track engagement with the lead in these conversations. And
Yeah,
then,
and Claire, just one thing to add as well on the personalized messaging front so
Mhm.
we have released our personalized messaging feature recently, which could obviously help dramatically with just being able to automatically personalize a message depending on the context of prior conversations, what have you. So we have found that it does work quite well with this use case as well. So I wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, for sure. If somebody had a question about a previous event, or if they had a question even about the event that we're following up on here, your agent would be able to identify that, answer that question, and continue to drive toward the objective. And then, as we all know, timing is extremely important for events. So typically, I like to tell clients to wait 24 to 48 hours before following up on an event, or do that. It's obviously very quickly, but I think it's really important to send those messages while it's fresh on all of your attendees' mind. Use those custom subject lines really to make sure that we can take advantage of this time while the information is still fresh. And then the last one that I have here is really just assigning your agent the role of event follow up. So the importance with this is really just ensuring that your strategy is aligned with both marketing and sales. In this workflow that I have on the right side of the screen, you can see that once we've identified these hot leads, we are then passing them off to your sales team. So we want to make sure that your sales team feels comfortable, is educated on all of the next steps to follow up with leads that have been generated from Conversica. And then on the other hand, those that don't engage, we want to re-engage them. So then we're bringing in marketing on this side. So we want to make sure that we have buy-in from both groups to make sure that we have this workflow that's ultimately going the direction that we need and including both parties. And then how to measure success. So there are 4 areas that we've taken this down to that I'll kind of walk through right now. But the first one is obviously engagement. So we're going to be looking at that response rate. In Conversica, the engagement rate is ultimately the leads that have replied. However, with event outreach, whether it is event invites or that post-event follow-up, we are including more times than we're not links, multiple links, whether that's to register, to schedule a meeting with a rep, and so on. So we'll want to look at that clicked link metric as well. And if you guys have any UTMs on these links that we're including, that's another thing to consider as we're looking at engagement as well. And then event turnout, very obvious. So the registration to attendance rate is obviously very important, but then that no-show recovery is another one that I really like to highlight. So we had all of these leads, register for this event. They expressed interest in some fashion and they gave us their information. Rather than letting those leads take up space in your CRM, let's see if we can uncover something else from them. Give them messaging that's relevant to the fact that, hey, you're interested in this, and see if we can kind of, get them interested in something else, find a better time to meet with them, but continue to move them along the funnel and see if we can get them an opportunity uncovered. And then time saved. So what to really think about with time saved is just that number of hours spent on building out these lists, the outreach involved, the follow-up, and ultimately routing these leads to your sales team. So thinking about how Conversica can help automate this outreach, do part of the segmentation, the follow-up, and then really create those CRM tasks for your team, including all of the relevant and discovered information, is really something to consider here as well. And then influence pipeline. So if you have worked with me in any fashion, you know that I will always refer to this as influence pipeline, because I think that there are many different ways that people are tracking ROI. However, if we can say that Conversica, has anything to do with these event source opportunities, whether Conversica was involved, in some of those initial conversations to get that lead to that event, or the post conversations to schedule a meeting with the representative, we would classify that as having some influence on this created opportunity. So this obviously contributes to that pipeline growth and then additional expansion ops with current customers. I know I went through that really quickly. All of these slides, I know that they were also very word heavy, but I do plan to make this available for everybody who attended today. So if you're interested in receiving this, feel absolutely free to let your CSM or me know, and we can make sure that we get it over to you.
Great. Thank you, Claire. Your wealth of knowledge on this, considering how many times you've done this. So I know it's always great to hear you walk us through these best practices. I know I learned a lot. So thank you. So if there's any last minute questions, please pop them into the chat here. But I would just like to just wrap up here and say, John, Scott, Matthew, thank you so much for attending and sharing your experience. I know you're a wealth of knowledge here, having done this at a global scale. So it's really great to hear just how to really do this effectively and efficiently. So I know I've learned a lot. I'm sure everyone else here learned a lot too. So just want to thank you for sharing your time and your insights with us. I know we really appreciate it.
Yep. Thanks for having us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Look forward to everything that's coming for 2026, and we'll connect with you guys shortly.
Great. Well, thank you, everyone. Have a great day. We'll
Thank
talk
you.
soon. Thank you.
Bye.